The hockey world has held its breath for decades, waiting for a secret to be unlocked from one of the few men who truly knows. We see the trophies, we celebrate the dynasties, but we're always left wondering about the shadows they cast, the untold stories buried under the ice. For over 40 years, Butch Goring, the heart and soul of that legendary New York Islanders dynasty, has kept his silence. He's answered questions with a smile, deflected with humor, and carried the weight of a truth that could shatter the way we view hockey's greatest era. Please like, share, and subscribe for more NHL content. But now, at 75 years old, the man they once called the final piece of the championship puzzle is ready to talk. And what he has to say isn't about the glory of 4 straight Stanley Cups. It's about the cost. It's about the scandal that the NHL hoped was forgotten, a secret so explosive it was hidden in plain sight, behind the parades and the champagne celebrations. I was there in the room when he decided to break his silence. The air was thick, not with nostalgia, but with a grim resolve. He leaned forward, his voice a low, steady rumble, and said, "They told us to win. They never told us what we'd have to lose to do it." He didn't start with names or dates. He started with a feeling, a creeping dread that settled into the Islanders' locker room even as they were hoisting the cup. It was a price paid not in sweat, but in silence. A deal made not with the devil, but with the men in suits who built the league. The scandal wasn't about points or gambling. It was about bodies. It was about the unspoken agreement that to be a champion in the 1980s, you played through pain that no human being should ever be asked to endure. The team doctors, lauded as miracle workers, were handing out pills like candy. Vitamin shots, they called them. Butch described the ritual, the pregame injection, the third period, pick me up, the handful of painkillers to simply make it through the night after the game. He talked about the change in his teammates. The once vibrant personalities becoming hollowed out, irritable shells. The mood swings were violent and unpredictable. He recalled one night, after a brutal win against the Flyers, sitting in a hotel room with a line of teammates, all of them staring into the abyss, numbed by a cocktail of pharmaceuticals they didn't understand, prescribed by a system that saw them as assets, not men. The real shock came when he named the architect. It wasn't a rogue doctor. It was a high-ranking NHL executive, now long since passed, who had instituted a performance protocol for the league's marquee teams. The Islanders, as the flagship dynasty, were the testing ground. Winning was the only metric that mattered, and this executive ensured they would win, no matter the human wreckage left behind. Butch's voice cracked as he described the aftermath. The divorces. The bankruptcies. The addictions that his brothers in arms fought for years after their careers ended. He spoke of players whose minds were so fogged they couldn't hold a job, of men who died young, their bodies and spirits broken by the very system that made them legends. This wasn't hockey, he whispered, his eyes glistening. This was an experiment. And we were the lab rats. We won those cups, but we lost ourselves in the process. The greatest scandal in NHL history isn't a single event, it's a legacy of institutional neglect that fueled its greatest dynasty. The implications are staggering. It calls into question the very foundation of that era's success. Were the Islanders a perfectly constructed hockey team, or were they a pharmaceutical experiment pushed beyond human limits? This is a truth that will ripple from the old Nassau Coliseum to the league offices in New York. For the fans in Toronto and Montreal, in Chicago and Detroit, who watched that dynasty with a mix of awe and resentment, this changes everything. The rivalry we felt was real, but the battle was unfair in a way we could never have imagined. And for the fans across Canada, who revere the sport's purity, this is a devastating blow. The NHL, the institution we trusted with our heroes, was complicit in their destruction for the sake of television ratings and ticket sales. Butch Goring isn't just telling his story, he's speaking for the silent, for the ones who can no longer speak for themselves. He saved his most haunting revelation for last. He described a specific Game 7, the cup on the line. He looked across the ice at an opposing player, a rival he had battled for years, and saw the same hollow look in his eyes. The same chemically induced focus. The same dead soul. In that moment, he realized it wasn't just his team. The scandal was league-wide. The silence in the room after he finished was heavier than any check into the boards. The 4 Stanley Cup rings he wore seemed less like jewelry and more like shackles, tokens from a war that was never supposed to be fought this way. The NHL has built its modern empire on the backs of these legends, marketing their highlights and selling their jerseys. Butch Goring's testimony threatens to tear that entire facade down. This is bigger than one team or one era, it's about the soul of the sport we love. So where do we go from here? How does the league reconcile its glorious past with this horrifying truth? The first step is acknowledgement. The second is a long overdue conversation about the well-being of the players, past and present. Butch Goring didn't tell this story for vengeance. He told it for redemption, not for himself, but for the game. He believes hockey is better than this, that its beauty lies in skill and heart, not in a syringe or a pill bottle. As he stood to leave, he looked back and said one final thing. Tell the fans, he said, that we love them more than the cups. Tell them the real victory isn't the one you parade with. It's the one you get to live with when the skates are hung up for good. The legacy of the New York Islanders dynasty will forever be changed. They are no longer just the team that won 19 straight playoff series. They are the team that survived, and whose captain is now finally telling the world what it cost them. This is Butch Goring's final, and most important, shift.